Good evening. I'm calling to order the January 27th, 2020 meeting of our Planning and Zoning Board. We'll start as we always do with the adoption of our agenda. If no one has any changes, I'll be looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries unanimous. Next, we'll be looking at the approval of our regular meeting minutes from our last meeting, which is November 18th. If no one has any changes, I'll take a motion for that as well.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries unanimous. Next, we'll be moving to our cases. The first case of this evening will be 19 REZ03, the Sutherland Gooch property, and Ms. Puckett will be presenting that for us. Good evening.
Good evening, Board. Thank you. This is a request to rezone just over 60 acres located on the 96 and 9700 block of Morrisville Parkway. The subject property includes 3 parcels located on the northwest side of Morrisville Parkway, just west of its intersection with Weldon Ridge Boulevard. The current zoning is R40, Conservation Residential Overlay District, and Watershed Protection Overlay District. The applicant is requesting to rezone to transitional residential conditional use, and the overlay districts will remain. The applicant is proposing 15 zoning conditions. These include limiting uses to detached dwellings, townhouses, and neighborhood recreation, limiting the maximum density to 2.5 units per acre, limiting detached homes to a maximum of 115 age-restricted units, limiting townhouses to a maximum of 35, limiting townhouse buildings to a maximum of 5 units each, establishing a minimum lot size of 6,000 square feet for detached units, establishing a minimum combined side yard of 9 feet for detached units and a minimum individual side yard of 3 feet, ensuring that adjacent stream buffer area will not be counted towards the lot size, ensuring no lot shall front on Creighton Oak Drive within 200 feet of the lot at the corner of Creighton Oak and Bridal Boast Road, offering a minimum of 1 acre of community gathering space, which is almost 9 times the LDO requirement. This has also been increased from the original condition, which offered 10,000 square feet. Locating townhouses in the center of the site and ensuring public streets will be constructed and dedicated in the townhouse portion. Providing an 80-foot wide streetscape along Morrisville Parkway, which is 30 feet wider than the LDO requirement. Providing an additional perimeter buffer of varying width, as shown on this concept plan, and planted to a Type B standard. And providing additional areas of open space, totaling approximately 1.3 acres. According to Town of Cary GIS, stream buffers may impact large portions of the site, and field determination of such features shall be required at time of development plan review. A future greenway is planned to traverse the southwestern corner of the site, and a future streetside trail is located along the property frontage. Morrisville Parkway is currently a 2-lane median divided roadway with a future cross-section of a 4-lane median divided roadway in a minimum of 105 feet of right-of-way. Staff's analysis finds that the proposed rezoning most directly addresses policies in the Live and Shape chapters of the Cary Community Plan, as well as goals of the Green Level Special Planning Area. The proposed development supports LIVE policies by providing a mix of housing types. It also provides townhouses and age-restricted housing, which is uncommon in this area. Staff have noted, however, that senior housing would not be in close proximity to amenities or services. The proposed residential use types will result in substantially smaller lots than those found in adjacent neighborhoods. However, the townhouses will be sited in the center of the property and are somewhat buffered by existing stream buffers. In this way, the detached housing on the outside edges provides a transition between the denser townhomes in the center of the site and adjacent developments. Additional buffers have been offered along the perimeter to help shield the denser detached product from neighboring developments as well. The site is located in the Green Level Special Planning Area in neighborhoods west of Flat Branch. This area recommends a maximum aggregate density of 2.5 units per acre. The proposed rezoning does fall within this limit. With this development and those existing approved or under review, this area of Green Level is still well below the maximum recommended density. The Imagine Cary Community Plan recommends detached single-family residential uses for this portion of the Green Level Spa, but also states that pockets of townhouse development can be supported where shielded from view. The proposal, again, locates townhouses in the center of the site and also offers an 80-foot streetscape along Morrisville Parkway for additional screening. The special planning area recommends either large lot or clustered development. While this proposal does not definitively fall into either category, the applicant has slightly increased the minimum lot size and side setbacks from those normally required in the TR district. The applicant has also offered additional open space and increased their community gathering space commitment. The additional green areas offered, combined with the large acreage and regulatory buffers, will result in approximately 19 acres, or about 32% of the site, in open space and buffers. Thus, on the whole, the proposed development appears to be generally consistent with the intent of the green level special planning area. 30 citizens attended the neighborhood meeting in April. Questions and concerns were regarding the density, impacts to traffic, potential impacts on property values, and buffers between existing neighborhoods and the proposed development. Staff have received several emails since then from adjacent neighborhood residents seeking details of the proposed conditions, existing easement locations and buffer locations, as well as LDO requirements. A public hearing was held at the September 12th Town Council meeting. 3 speakers voiced comments, including concerns with the density of the development and how they felt it may not meet the rural character of Green Level. Concerns were also voiced about the potential environmental impacts from such a large development. Council members discussed whether the proposed development could meet the intent of the Green Level SPA, and one member noted that it appeared not much open space had been offered beyond the regulatory stream buffers. Other members felt the smaller lot size could be justified, since this would primarily be an age-restricted development, but also noted this should be balanced with open space. One member did note the increased streetscape did show an effort to comply with the plan. Since the public hearing, the applicant has added and modified conditions to increase the community gathering space to a minimum of 1 acre, provide an additional perimeter buffer over that required, provide additional open space on the concept plan of over 1 acre, increase the minimum lot size to 6,000 square feet and the minimum aggregate side yard to 9 feet, and ensure that stream buffer shall not be counted towards lot size. On the whole, and with those changes since Town Council, staff finds that the proposed development does support some of the live and shape policies. While the proposed development would be denser and have smaller lots than those of adjoining neighborhoods, the applicant has made efforts to increase buffers between these developments and has specifically cited the townhouse portion of development in the center, which could be considered a pocket in the context of the Green Level Special Planning Area. The large amount of combined regulatory and offered open space does bring the site more closely in conformance with the overall intent of the special planning area. In reviewing this request, the board may consider a number of factors, including the use, density, lot size, and whether the development provides appropriate transitions, as well as whether the proposal is in keeping with the intent of the Green Level Special Planning Area guidance, as well as any other issues. This concludes staff's presentation. The applicant's representative is here and will speak regarding the proposal and will then be available for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Puckett. I'll now invite the applicant forward to speak.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Jason Barron with Morningstar Law Group here on behalf of the owners and the applicant. The proposed developer of this site is Epcon Communities, and we have representatives from Epcon who are here to answer questions that you all may have, and also representatives from Withers Ravenel who provided land planning and engineering associated with this proposal. Aaron has done a thorough job in each of the presentation as well as the staff report in covering the nitty-gritty details associated with this proposal, and I don't want to repeat much of what she said. Really want to highlight a couple of things. When this property was first brought to my attention by this client, almost actually over a year ago now, when we first started having discussions associated with a potential senior community in this area, a couple of things stood out to me. The first is it's an infill site, and it's weird to talk about sites of this size as infill, but if you look around it, generally speaking, all of its contiguous borders, with the exception of what's across the street, have already been developed. So for all intents and purposes, it's an infill site. And with infill sites, as you all are aware, there comes special attention that's required in order to make sure that you are effectively mitigating potential impacts associated with development. The second thing that became clear as I was looking at it and working with the client was it's in the green level special planning area. It's not in one of the geographic areas, the traditional geographic areas that are designated in the Cary Community Plan. There's a set of policies unique to the green level special planning area that apply to this parcel. So we knew kind of going in we were going to have to be focused on two really big picture items, and that is making sure that whatever we did was going to be consistent with the Cary Community Plan and the special policies associated with the planning area that this property is located in, but also making sure that the site was going to be appropriately conditioned such that any potential impacts associated with the development were going to be adequately mitigated by conditions adopted through the case. A couple things before I go on, I just want you all to be aware, EPCON, senior living is what they do. They specialize in senior development. They've got a number of developments here in Cary as well as the Triangle as a whole that are either age restricted or what I'll call age targeted. Now, there is nothing age targeted about what you're seeing today. What is before you is a proposal for age restricted detached housing with market townhomes kind of nestled in between, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But I want you all to be aware that their focus in everything that they do is around seniors. I mean, even the townhomes will be kind of pointed towards providing townhome living opportunities for seniors if they have their way, and based upon their experience of building more than 30,000 homes in the history of the company, that's where their focus has been the most successful. With regard to the green level special planning area, this case, as was noted, went to public hearing in April, I believe it was, and we're here in January of 2020. So it's been a long time between the public hearing and now appearing before you all. Actually, excuse me, it went to neighborhood meeting in April, excuse me. And so we've been in the process for a while. A lot of that process has been spent working on conditions to make sure that what is before you all tonight, what was presented to the, at the public hearing and will ultimately be presented to the council when it makes its way back, is something that is indeed consistent with the special planning area. And we believe that we have achieved that in a number of respects. As was noted by the staff, and I just want to highlight a handful of things because I think Aaron has done a very thorough job in covering it. The density is consistent with the green level special planning area at 2.5 units to the acre. The thoroughfare buffer has been increased from 50 feet to 80 feet at the front end of the site. Regulatory open space has been significantly increased. There was a lot of discussion at the town council public hearing related to open space and the idea of a conservation subdivision and what that meant as it appears in the special planning area. And so open space has been increased such that nearly a third of the overall site is in open space. Additionally, the community gathering area has been increased to an acre, which, as noted, is nearly 9 times of what is otherwise required by the ordinance. And lastly, and this has been part of the development all along, but we believe that this is an area, especially given the fact that it's infill, especially that it's in the special planning area, it was an area where doing a concept plan rezoning makes a lot of sense. It provides the type of predictability that folks want to be able to see. And honestly, I think it provides the type of predictability to be able to effectively determine, is this a case that satisfies the policies contained within the special planning area? And so, as was mentioned, you've got market townhomes kind of nestled in the center of the site with age-restricted detached dwellings kind of encircling them as you transition to the existing single-family detached neighborhoods. And Mother Nature has created a situation where even the townhomes themselves have built-in buffers, built-in transitions interior to the site, with the exception of these areas here where you will find the community gathering space and the amenity. Even the detached dwellings that are going to be located on the site are also buffered from the townhomes going to be on the site. So it's really kind of a unique opportunity to diversify the housing options, which is a big part of what the overall Town of Cary, Cary Community Plan is trying to achieve, while at the same time providing for transitions that make a lot of sense. And so we believe that, with the concept plan and the conditions that have been attached, and we appreciate the work the staff has been put in, that, we have achieved in a significant manner satisfying the requirements and the recommendations of the special planning area. With respect to the neighborhood concerns, as I mentioned, out of the gate, we knew we were going to have to spend a lot of time with our neighbors. I had no idea how much time my client was going to be willing to spend with neighbors, but at this point, we were talking about it on Friday. either in large group meetings or small one-on-one, or kind of with meeting with three neighbors at a time. We've had more than 20 neighborhood meetings as part of this rezoning case. And I tip my cap to my client and their willingness to sit down in people's living rooms almost ad nauseum, honestly, to make sure that their voices were heard. And we feel very good about that. We're not aware of any opposition to the case right now. We had a lot of people who showed up at the first neighborhood meeting who had a lot of concerns. And so we've put in a lot of work. And I know that doesn't really relate to what you all do with respect to the analysis of the Cary Community Plan, but I want you to be aware a lot of time has been put in. And there are 15 conditions associated with what is otherwise a pretty straightforward development plan. And I think that's reflective of the significant degree to which discussions have been ongoing, especially as it relates to the additional buffers and the additional open space as you transition from this site over to Copperleaf to our south. There has been a lot of special focus paid to those folks. And so in summary, we believe that, I feel good that when I got into this case, we knew we were going to have to make sure that it was the right location and that it satisfied the Cary community plan and the special planning area. I believe that's true. The last point that I want to make relates to lot size, because arguably the only hole in our application is, do we satisfy the lot size recommendations? Because if you read through the special planning area, it talks about conservation subdivision, it talks about quarter acre lots and that size. The only thing I would say is that the lot size associated with the detached dwellings is based upon the demographic. These lot sizes are not in order to achieve a density. They are designed around the seniors who will be buying these homes. And so the minimum 6,000 square foot lot size is designed around the end user. I mention that because if a finding is made, if for whatever reason, if you all don't agree that this is a case that's consistent with the Cary Community Plan, if that is your prerogative and you're entitled to do that, I think it's tantamount to saying there will never be a place for senior housing in the green level special planning area. Because if you read that language and make an ultimate decision that the lot sizes are inconsistent with that, I think the logical conclusion is you're not going to force seniors to buy a market product at a quarter of an acre if they don't want a quarter of an acre. And so I just want to mention that to you because again, if there is a hole in our application as it relates to the Cary Community Plan, it's a hole that is necessary in order to achieve the senior housing that this is designed to achieve. And so with that, we are here to answer any questions that you all may have. We appreciate the time and the opportunity and would respectfully request you all's recommendation or finding of consistency with the Cary Community Plan. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. I'll now open it up to board questions. If anyone has one, jump right in. Go ahead.
One just quick one. What's the maximum height on the townhouses?
Should be 35 feet.
Does that fit with?
That's correct. Since this is TR, they would be held to the standard in the LDO, which is 35. They can go up an additional foot for every additional foot of setbacks if the applicant offers to do so.
Thank you.
A much more comprehensive response. Thank you, Erin. She knows her stuff.
What about, the plan says that if you're putting in senior housing, it ought to have access to I suppose
Services.
neighborhood shopping and other neighborhood facilities.
Right.
How do you address that?
Well, and it's actually a conversation I was having with one of the client representatives who is here tonight, and I refer to it as senior housing, and every time I do, he slaps my hand. He said, Jason, this is active adult housing. This is not senior housing. Senior housing implies that the folks who are moving in here, it's this kind of final destination. This is not that type of housing. This is a 55 and older product. So, I mean, to the point, I would concede that this isn't within walking distance or biking distance of services. No arguing that point. But as a 55 and older community, especially in a place like Cary in this location, their anticipation is that it's going to be an active adult community, and the vast majority of folks who are going to be there are going to be, moving around on vehicles. They just won't be doing it during rush hour times when people care the most about it.
I have a question, Mr. Barron. Just help me understand and kind of walk me through in terms of the age-restricted dwellings. Are the townhomes included in that age restriction? You just have a mixture, so.
No.
No?
The townhomes are what I'll call market.
Okay, so they'll be market.
Yep.
For
anybody who
everybody.
wants to buy a townhome in the town of Cary, they can buy one there.
but the single-family detached will be age-restricted.
Correct.
And help me understand, because I'm not a lawyer, I'm not playing one on TV, is on the declaration, is that Cary, so in terms of that covenant, those conditions, that carries with the property so that the
It does.
future home buyers need to meet that same
That's right.
requirement? So,
Yep, so there is a covenant that's recorded, it's part of title, so every person who buys a lot is on record notice of that fact. The HOA is responsible for enforcing that. Per federal regulations, the HOA is required to enforce the restrictions with respect to the occupancy requirements. And under the federal program associated with senior housing, active adult housing, see, I did it again. 80% of the homes have to be owned by somebody 55 or older. So there's actually the opportunity for 20% of those dwellings to be owned by somebody under the age of 55. But yeah, ultimately, the enforcement mechanism, in addition to the notice that's provided as part of title, the enforcement mechanism will come down to the homeowners association.
okay, thank you.
I have one question. Maybe more staff. This area, when you out in the green level special plan, I always get confused on this. Is this the area that's got the rural definition hanging around it, or am I off base with that? That it should have the rural feel character?
I believe that's correct. It's not really defined in the special.
I know it's kind of subjective, but it does state that in the
I believe
community
west of
plan
Lapland,
somewhere, right?
They do use the word rural, yes, is that? It is.
So, and then this, I can probably switch back over to you now. But
Sure.
so over on Morrisville Parkway, I think it's awesome that the buffer is going to be that wide, but it's going to take some time for that to mature, right? So that you can,
Sure. And I think
for a while you're going to see through there, but I guess longer term you would not be able to see through.
Right. So a couple things there. If there is existing mature vegetation in that buffered area, that has to be preserved, so it won't be cleared and graded as part of the development process. To your point about it'll take some time, I believe the LDO standards contemplate 8 years to the time of maturity, so that when everything is planted within 8 years is the plan for it being fully mature. So during that window, you're right. I mean, you've got saplings that start and ultimately will grow, but the intent is to, or at least under the ordinance, is to have that fully achieving that level of screening by year 8.
Okay.
And with respect to the rural commentary, and I've been a part of a number of those cases that have gone through the process, and I mean, you said the rural definition. I think that's the challenge that we have, is there really isn't a rural definition.
No.
And I think that for the most part, there has been some tacit recognition, at least in the public hearings at council that I've been a part of, that it's kind of tough to achieve a rural feel the moment you put in streets and sidewalks and curb. I mean, you lose that kind of rural touch to it the moment the town of Cary implements their standards associated with public streets.
True. Okay.
You good?
Yep.
So I actually share some of the concerns with the town council that they voiced, the higher density. We have a pocket, which is not defined as well, that's less than a mile away from this area that was approved with the White Oak Foundation and townhomes and senior or active adult living, whatever you want to call it, that we approved for that small pocket. So I'm concerned about how many small pockets are we going to have in that rural area. The lack of open space was also voiced by, but I understand that they increased that, which is good. Environmental concerns for that conservation area, and the lack of amenities for the senior living. Those are my concerns.
Gotcha. Well, I understand your points on that. With respect to the amenities, I mean, as was noted, there's a minimum, almost an acre of community gathering area that's designed around their amenity. I mean, when they market these to their seniors, part of their amenities, part of the amenities of the area is going to be the amenity that they're providing on site. Again, I appreciate the point that it's not within real close proximity to commercial services, but the on-site amenities they believe are going to be robust and attractive to the marketplace they operate in. From an environmental standpoint, as you're aware, the town's ordinances were recently updated to provide for not only the 2/10/25, but also the 100-year storm event, which is a significant move. I think that I think Cary is the first jurisdiction in the county to make that move. And there are a number of environmentally sensitive areas that are being protected as part of this. Okay, so, and I appreciate the point. And lastly, the increases in open space that have occurred on the plan haven't been by accident. They've been thoughtful in trying to respond to those concerns. Yep.
I think the main thing that I'm concerned about is the higher density in that area.
Gotcha.
Is there a reason why they're not doing more detached dwellings? Why are they putting townhomes in there? Do you know?
They like the mix in unit type. I mean, anytime you can mix unit type, just generally across the board, it will reduce the amount of time that it takes you to sell out of the site because you don't have one type of unit competing against the other. So being able to introduce a different unit type, makes it a more attractive option for the developer. From a use standpoint, we think it makes it for a better use because you're providing for townhomes, smaller lot, single-family detached, as well as the larger lot. I mean, candidly, if you look at this area, and I appreciate the point on density, but if you look at the overall area that it's located in, I mean, you have a lot of kind of the same stuff. A lot of really nice homes have been built out there, and if anybody's watching, I'm not don't mean any offense. Gorgeous homes out there, but really kind of one size fits all. And we think that from a planning standpoint, certainly if you look at the length that the Cary Community Plan goes into to talk about diversifying housing options, that being able to provide a pocket of townhomes that's completely buffered around the single-family detached is a great way to address that need for additional housing type, to provide a move-down opportunity for folks who already live there. If they live in the $600,000 home and decide that they don't want to have that anymore, they'd rather buy the beach house, there's a townhouse that they can buy around the corner, or there's a detached dwelling. It provides a lot of flexibility for folks who already live in that area to age in place, which is what you want to do with senior housing and transitional housing.
Anyone else have any questions?
I have one. I understand that the watershed protection overlay district is staying in place, and that sets a bar for a lot of the impervious surface limitations. Otherwise, does the change in zoning allow for more impervious, or is all of that capped by the watershed overlay district?
All that's capped by the watershed.
Thank you.
I actually do have one question for staff. One of the conditions that were added as part of this rezoning was that all streets shall be designated and constructed as public streets. In the event that condition was not offered, what areas of the development would be eligible for private streets? Or what areas would not have to be public standard?
So the detached area is required under LDO to be public streets. So the townhomes currently, and we're going through a potential LDO amendment right now that would not allow those in the future, but currently that's the only place they could have private streets would be townhouses. So they're offering to not opt for that.
Okay. For some reason, I thought that we had an amendment for townhomes, but thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, that problem with private streets in townhomes has been a long-standing problem in Cary that staff is trying to address, and I would compliment the applicant on putting public streets in. Homeowners associations aren't too adept at handling public streets or maintaining streets.
And even when it snows, the town is still going to get a call about why wasn't my street plowed, especially in a place like this where you have townhomes that are lodged in between single-family detached where there will be public streets. That really makes a lot of sense.
But the town has little signs that they put up that says town maintenance ends here at the entrance to a number of
It's amazing how easy those are to miss,
townhouses.
though, in my experience. People, it's like they're written in a different language.
If there are no other questions, I'll be looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move that the board find case number 19 REZ03 is consistent with the comprehensive plan and all other applicable plans for the reasons set forth in the staff report, presentation, and discussion by the Planning and Zoning Board.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion?
I do continue to struggle with the rule thing. I know we've talked about that. But I do believe that the buffer, the 80-foot buffer, really helped swayed me on that. And then some of the other changes that were made. I think if you look at the plan, the the transitional housing here to wrap the 55 plus around the townhomes is probably a really good use of the land. So I think considering everything, it's a fair proposal.
Anything you want to add?
No.
I'll make a comment. I do like the variety of design options for that community, and I think the density is still consistent with the plan. There's flexibility in the plan to allow for the smaller lot sizes, so I think that it's very aligned to the plan. And I do appreciate the increased square footage of community space. I think that that's really important for all target markets, and particularly when you are creating a division of its own. I think that was really important, so I appreciated that.
I appreciate the fact that the neighbor concerns were taken into account and that there was a lot of listening going on. I think that's essential when we're, even if it's considered infill, but a chunk of land this size needs to be addressed with the people that are going to be nearby and have to deal with the potential traffic and other hurdles that happen as a result of that. So that's good. I'm looking at the green level special planning area definition, and it does say that gradually changing the historically rural character to a more suburban one. Now, you could argue what gradually means, but clearly there's already a lot of activity in this area in terms of development, and to try to at least maintain some wider open spaces within the context of this piece, as well as the larger lot sizes, I think is admirable and probably does fit within this the context of the community plan's intentions.
Yeah, I would echo what you said with regard, we are sensitive about green level and what goes on out there, and it's reflected in the plan, and I think everybody here is sensitive about it. And so we look really closely at these proposals, but it does look like this one has received a lot of attention and probably is an improvement to the area, which is what we're looking for. So I would support it.
Yeah, I'll like to offer support for it. And, you know, to address some of the issues come up, first of all, I want to thank the applicant for not including the stream buffer in terms of the lot sizes. I mean, I think that's the step one to be able to define what a rural area is. I mean, I think when they look at this piece, it's hard to think of 60 acres being infill, but all the green space and all that's being done in terms of the buffers between the surrounding property or the surrounding areas for the streetscape, recognizing the stream buffer, adding further community space, et cetera. I think within that 60 acres, you probably have created an enclave that has more rural feel than probably almost anything else that's been developed out there. Mm-hmm. You know, and so this is really when you think about those various pieces. So I think there's a lot to be said for that. And obviously, the applicant has listened to a lot of the neighbors and have done a lot of work. I'm sure that the civil engineering firm, landscape architects have also. I am less concerned, you know, I was looking at Google Maps. I mean, the corner of Green Level Church and Carpenter Fire Station Road is approximately 2 miles away, where there's 2 supermarkets, there's pharmacies, et cetera, other amenities. So even though we often think in senior housing, we think we define it, let's say, in one definition is within a mile. I think that there's a good point when you look at the lifestyle of the individuals who are going to live there. You can think about the Del Webb community, I shouldn't say that, but there's another age-targeted community not too far from there in Amberley, and it's the same thing. I mean, these folks are highly mobile, highly active seniors, and so I'm not too concerned, because even though it feels like it's in the country, you're only 2 miles from supermarkets, which isn't that far. So for that, I think it's a good fit for that piece, and it's a nice fit for that last puzzle piece that's going in there, because it is different than everything else. And the fact that we've got the diversity of housing mix and also targeting a population for years to come, I think is a big benefit out there.
I think that we need to be cautious. I think this fits in the community plan. It does. It's consistent. But we need to be cautious moving forward that we're not going to increase the density too much and cause this to not have that rural feel. That's it.
So just to add two quick things, the green level special planning area, one of the things that it encourages, especially when you have a mix of uses, is a cluster development. That's one thing, like rural feel, that isn't quite easily defined within the plan. I think this is a great example of a case where it is a cluster development. I think the developers really tried hard to make it that way, to provide shielding, additional buffering, setbacks, that kind of stuff, to really make it into what a cluster development would look like. And I definitely commend the applicant for doing that. I also commend them on not just increasing the lot size, but also providing additional yardage setback. I definitely buy the argument that we have a mature adult community here that would, as a market, probably like something a little closer together, but yet we're not just looking at the TRCU minimums. We're looking at something a little more fitting with the surrounding area. And I think that does provide a better fit for this development, along with some of the neighboring ones as well. So if no one has any other comments, we'll call it to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimous. Our next case for this evening will be 19 REZ 19, the Farrell property. Again, Ms. Puckett.
Thank you. This next request is to rezone just under 8 acres located at 1033 Fersen Road. The subject property is on the north side of Morrisville Parkway at its intersection with the American Tobacco Trail and also has frontage on Fersen Road. For reference, the Sutherland Gooch rezoning request that you just saw is northeast of this site. The site is currently located in Wake County and is zoned R40 watershed. The applicant is requesting a rezoning to residential 20 conditional use and watershed protection overlay district. According to Cary's GIS data, stream buffers bisect the northern and southern portions of the site. Cary's Parks and Recreation Master Plan indicates a future street side trail along the property frontage on Morrisville Parkway, which would connect the Copperleaf Greenway to the east with the American Tobacco Trail. Morrisville Parkway, again, is a future 4-lane median divided roadway, and Fersen Road is a future 2-lane road with 50 feet of right-of-way. We would like to point out at this time that this site could be developed using a combination of exempt and expedited divisions of land as allowed under North Carolina general statutes, which would exempt the developer from the development plan review process. If developed in this manner, the developer would not be responsible for building the streetside trail or making road improvements on Morrisville Parkway. With that in mind, the applicant has proposed a number of conditions to bring some aspects of the site closer to what would be required of a typical development plan. So with that, the applicant is proposing 7 zoning conditions, limiting the use to 6 residential lots, not allowing direct vehicular access to Morrisville Parkway, dedicating right-of-way along Morrisville Parkway, providing a 20-foot wide greenway easement along Morrisville Parkway, as well as a 30-foot streetscape, providing a 50-foot Type B buffer along the American Tobacco Trail, and paving Fersen Road, including providing curb and gutter along the west side. Buffers, streetscapes, and the greenway easement will also be within HOA-maintained common area. This table compares LDO requirements to what has been offered by the applicant. Items in green have been offered to LDO standards, where items in orange and red meet LDO standards partially or not at all, respectively. The LDO would require Morrisville Parkway to be widened and improved. The applicant has offered right-of-way dedication, but has not offered to construct the improvements. The applicant has offered Fersen Road improvements per the town's standard specifications, including paving the full width along the property frontage and providing curb and gutter on the west side, which is adjacent to their property. A 50-foot streetscape would typically be required along Morrisville Parkway. The applicant has offered a 30-foot streetscape. An American Tobacco Trail buffer of 50 feet has been offered, but planted to a Type B standard rather than the typical Type A. Construction of a streetside trail along Morrisville Parkway has not been offered, but a 20-foot easement has been. And the typical recreation dedication or fee in lieu has not been offered. Staff's analysis finds the proposed rezoning most directly addresses policies in the live, shape, and engage chapters, as well as, once again, the green level special planning area. The subject property is located in the neighborhoods west of Flat Branch in the green level spa. The proposed density and use and the lot size permitted in the R20 zoning district are all consistent with this designation, and the provision of housing in this area generally supports live policies. The site could also help facilitate transitions between similar residential uses to the east and lower density residential to the west. The shape chapter also stresses the importance of maintaining Cary's attractive appearance, and the green level spa specifically underscores the importance of shielding new development from both thoroughfares and the American Tobacco Trail. The applicant has offered a 50-foot Type E buffer along the trail, which could help address these policies. However, this is a less dense planting standard than would typically be required by the LDO. The Engaged chapter discusses the provision and maintenance of the town's park system and greenway network. Again, a greenway easement has been offered along the property frontage, but the street side trail may not be constructed if the site is indeed developed under the permitted exemptions, and likewise the recreation fee would not be required. One citizen attended the neighborhood meeting in September and noted concerns about stormwater and traffic from the proposed development. Staff also received one email expressing concerns about the cumulative impact of multiple development requests in the area on traffic and aesthetics. A public hearing was held at the November 21st Town Council meeting. No citizen spoke during this hearing. Council members did have some questions and concerns regarding the exemptions permitted under state law and how they would work. They also asked whether the applicant could seek an exempt subdivision under existing Wake County zoning, which staff confirmed, but noted they may not be able to attain the desired lot yield this way or obtain access to water and sewer. No changes have been made since the public hearing. Staff's analysis finds that the request is, on the balance, consistent with the Imagine Cary community plan. Specifically, the proposal supports policies in the live and shape chapters, as well as the green level special planning area. In general, the use, density, and lot size are all appropriate, although staff also notes that the proposal would even better meet the intent of the plan if the tobacco trail buffer was planted at a type A standard. In reviewing this request, the board may consider a number of factors such as the use, density, lot size proposed, whether the development provides appropriate transitions, or other issues necessary to determine whether the proposal is consistent with the plan. This concludes staff's presentation, and following the applicant's comments, we'll be available for any questions.
Thanks, Ms. Puckett. I'll call the applicant forward.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Tony Tate. I'm a landscape architect and land planner with TMT LA Associates, 511 South Park Drive in Durham. Here with me tonight is Mr. Glenn Futrell, who is the developer for this project. And as you can see, the piece of property is very oddly shaped. And so in looking at the particular piece of property and trying to figure out how best to continue the existing development that's coming out of Montvale, the estates in Montvale, the extreme narrowness of the lot on the northern end. We've got just over 7.5 acres or 7 acres in this site. We're limiting it to 6 residential lots. So we're less than 1 unit per acre through that particular section. Again, just trying to continue that pattern of development down Montvale Ridge. The conditions that we offered, we're trying to bring the site closer into compliance than what would be allowed if we were just subdividing this piece. Obviously, we're trying to gain water and sewer to make this development consistent, but given the fact that we can only gain so many lots out of this, some of the items, such as the Marsville Parkway construction, it's just out of the range of being able to do that monetarily with only being able to get 6 lots out of this particular piece. So again, they're large lots. It'd be a minimum of 20,000 square feet in size, larger than the other lots in the area. We're providing curb and gutter and street paving on what is now a dirt street or dirt road out there. Pearson Road is a dirt road. So we feel like we're trying to bring those conditions in that would allow the town to get the conditions that, the things that would allow this property to move forward in a consistent way as much as we can, given the situation. Again, it's a weirdly shaped piece of property, has a noose riparian buffer that runs up through the kind of southern portion of it, or about midway of the site. So all of the development is going to be up on Pearson Road, which I think will end up changing to Montvale Ridge Drive as it comes down through there. But Aaron did a great job trying to walk us through the process with conditions, and we've had a lot of meetings with them. So we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have, and look forward to your support.
Great, thank you. I'll now open up to board questions. If anyone has any question, go ahead and jump on in.
Can you remind me what the standard buffer is for the American Tobacco Trail?
Yes, it would be a 50-foot type A, so they have offered the width, just a slightly lower planting standard.
Well, my question following up on that is, why not a type A buffer along the American Tobacco Trail, which is a great amenity for your property?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I went back out and walked the trail and the property again last weekend and today. And so the majority of the trail, or majority of the property that butts the trail, the 50-foot section, except for the northern, maybe a third, is highly or greatly wooded with pines and overstory trees. There is probably a 25-foot difference in elevation from the trail down to the bottom as you go about where the stream runs under the site. So you're really looking over top of whatever buffer plantings you would be doing on the southern end.
What about on the northern end, though? That looked like it was pretty clear.
It is clear, and I've spoken with Mr. Futrell, and he said that we would be willing to change that to a type A buffer where the property is open and cleared on that northern third. And so we would offer that up as a change to the conditions.
I think that seemed to be necessary, because that's basically an open field
Right.
in that area. I'm a big fan of the American Tobacco Trail. I think it's a wonderful amenity for your property and for everybody out there. And some other folks ride their bikes out there also. So that would be great if that could be added along the northern side, then that's good.
Can we go back to the slide where it shows the proposed conditions and?
This one or the one with the exhibit?
Where you have the green,
Yes.
red, and yellow text.
Is this the one?
No, you had a table.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
That one, thank you. One of the questions I had was the right-of-way dedication. If the applicant did not pay for that to be developed, would the town then have to pay for that?
That's correct, and I believe that's not in the budget currently, but that would be the town's responsibility to construct it. They'd be giving us the right-of-way for it. There's no timeline for that in the future if they don't build it concurrent with this site being developed.
Okay, so it would just be an open space until the town had budget and priority to do that?
Correct.
Okay.
If and when that was done, could they then go back and connect to that? Because right now they're not going to connect to Mooresville Parkway at all. Could they ever, once that's corrected, could they do that later?
Based on the conditions offered, the residential lots themselves can only access Fersen.
Okay.
So that would still be precluded even if they were building the road improvements.
I have a question for staff. The applicant has indicated that they consider a condition for a type A buffer along the ATT buffer area. Has that been offered formally to staff yet?
It has not been formally offered yet, but we will be working with the applicant after this meeting if that's something they'd like to offer, and I believe that would be something that council would like to see as well, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Then I'll be looking for a motion. If anyone has one.
There's our motion man.
I will be glad to make a motion. I move that the board find case number 19 REZ 19 is consistent with the comprehensive plan and all other applicable plans for the reasons set forth in the staff report, presentation, and discussion by the Planning and Zoning Board.
I'll second that.
I mean, I think this is reasonable. I really like the part of this where it's the residential lots. It is a difficult piece to build on. I think we should push this forward in the process in the hopes that there'll be further discussions about the buffers before the town council makes the final ruling.
And I have a good degree of confidence that Mr. Futrell will follow through with that buffer addition, and then I think that Tobacco Trail will be in good shape.
Any other discussion?
This is a really hard site. It's got a lot of right-of-way frontage and a lot of right-of-way along the American Tobacco Trail as well. And I take some comfort that we're only looking at 6 residential lots on a parcel of this size. I think a lot of that revolves around trying to fit the lots on a weirdly shaped parcel. And so that takes some comfort in that.
I think it's good usage for the space. I have some fiscal concerns about if the town has to foot the bill on the right of way rather than the applicant taking that on as part of developing that area. But I agree that it's aligned with the plan otherwise.
I'll offer that I think there's a lot of good in this proposal. It is a very difficult site, particularly where it borders in the Morrisville Parkway from a topo. I've been by this site literally hundreds of times, so I know where it drops off down there, so it becomes difficult. It's not a very large section, so at least the right-of-way is there. I have a lot of concern, and I appreciate that the applicant has offered a potential condition for a type A buffer versus the type B that's being proposed now. I think that the American Tobacco Trail area, that entire area, is particularly a special place. We know there's a lot more development coming in there. I think that we really need to hold the line on that buffer. Just north of that, I know we have Montvale. There's a number of issues with the buffer there that was at the site when they were doing the site construction. And I'm going to vote against this proposal, and it's strictly because before us tonight, we do not have a type A buffer. And I'm sure it's going to get worked out, but the devils will be in the detail with the applicant and the staff to determine at what point that elevation, I agree that there is some elevation, but at some point you're going to have to come to an agreement that up to there until that happens, based upon it being proposed as a type B, I will vote against the proposal, even though there's many other good things about it.
Any other discussion? In that case, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Carries 7-2. Move on to our next case of this evening, which is going to be case 19 REZ 21, the Green Level Church Road rezoning. Ms. Dry. Our employee of the year, Ms. Dry, should I say.
All right, good evening. Good evening, Chair and Planning. This is a request to rezone approximately 19 acres at Green Level Church Road and Fussell Avenue. The subject property is located on the west side of Green Level Church Road, south of Alston Ridge Elementary School, and east of the new Alston Ridge Middle School. The current zoning is R40, Mixed-Use Overlay District, and Watershed Protection Overlay District. The applicant is requesting to rezone to transitional residential conditional use. The overlay districts will remain in place. The applicant has proposed 8 zoning conditions. They are limiting the use to townhouses, accessory uses, and neighborhood recreation. They are limiting the density to a total of 90 units, which is about 4.8 units per acre. They will be providing a 30-foot wide streetscape along Fussell Avenue planted to a Type A standard, and a 30-foot Type B buffer along the western property line to Alston Ridge Middle School. This is 10 feet more than the LDO requirement. They're proposing a minimum of 6,000 square feet of community gathering space. This is 2,000 square feet more than what was required by the LDO, and we also note that this has been increased since the council public hearing. At the council public hearing, it was previously 5,000 square feet. They're also proposing to construct streets to public street standards and offering them for dedication to the public. There will be a pedestrian connection between the east and western portions of the property and locating stormwater control measures underground. According to Cary's GIS data, stream buffers impact large portions of the site, and wetlands may be present. Field determination of such features will be required at the time of development plan review. Staff's analysis finds the proposed rezoning most directly addresses policies in the live, shape, and work chapters. The subject property is in the mixed neighborhood category on the future growth framework map. Townhouses are a supported use in these areas. Regarding the live chapter, townhouses would contribute to the overall housing mix townwide, although a large share of multifamily residential and attached residential products are found in the immediate area. Similarly, provisions of the townhouses to have townhouses in close proximity to RTP could work to support the work policies as well. From a shape perspective, the proposed townhouse development could provide a use transition between the school uses to the north and to the west, and the residential uses to the south and to the east across the street. The applicant has also offered a 30-foot streetscape on Fussell Avenue, and a 30-foot wide Type B buffer is proposed along the western property line. A street side trail is shown along the frontage of the site on Green Level Church Road. This trail will provide bike and pedestrian access along to Alston Ridge Elementary to the north of the site. And Green Level Church Road is shown as a future 4-lane median divided thoroughfare with street side trails on each side. 6 citizens attended the neighborhood meeting in October and expressed concerns about traffic and connectivity, as well as the height of the proposed townhouses. One citizen has emailed on several occasions for updates regarding the case and meeting schedule and has voiced concerns regarding stormwater runoff. 2 members of the Waterford Estates HOA also met with staff to share concerns regarding traffic impacts, school cut-throughs, possible spillover parking from proposed townhouses, and in general, comments that detached single-family housing may be more appropriate at this location. At the Town Council public hearing in November of 2019, 3 citizens spoke. These were all Waterford Estates residents. There were concerns shared regarding the proposed use, density, connectivity and traffic, parking concerns. There were also questions from council regarding parking issues and other nearby townhouse developments that were mentioned, the amount of community gathering area for the site, as well as traffic data. Since the public hearing, the applicant has increased the community gathering area from 5,000 square feet to 6,000 square feet. They've also submitted a traffic memo, which is attached to the staff report. Staff notes in our analysis of the Cary Community Plan that this proposal supports policies from the Live, Work, and Shape chapters of the Imagine Cary Plan. We also note that the proximity of the site to RTP does help to support work policies for workforce housing. And we also note that this use could be served as a transition between the school and the residential uses adjacent. So this concludes staff's presentation. The applicant's representative is here to share their comments. And following that, we are available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dry. And I'll invite the applicant up.
Good evening. My name is Bahati Mutisia with Parker Poe Adams and Bernstein. The applicant, MI Homes. We have a few members of our land use team here with us today, including Erica Leatham with MI Homes, Ross Massey with Stewart Inc., who's our civil engineer, and Travis Flute with Kimley Horn, who's our traffic engineer. Both Ross and Travis will be available for detailed technical questions if the board has any after my remarks. Katie did an excellent job summarizing our requests, and I just want to highlight a few points, and I'll keep my remarks brief. As she mentioned, we are requesting to rezone the site from R40 to TRCU for a 90-unit townhome development. While we are increasing the density of the site, we are adding conditions that will keep the density relatively low, preserve a good amount of the site conditions, and provide a great deal of open space. Katie's already gone through each of our conditions, but I did want to just highlight some points of consistency with the Cary Community Plan. As she mentioned, we are offering a 30-foot Type A streetscape along the northern property line and a 30-foot Type B buffer along the western property line, which will provide a nice transition between the development and the nearby schools, which is consistent with State Policy 6 regarding transitions between uses. Katie also mentioned that we're offering the 6,000 square feet of community gathering space, which we have increased since the first public hearing, which was in response to the town council's comments at that hearing. So we are now offering 6,000 square feet, which is about 50% above the actual requirement. In addition to including that open space within the design, the development will also preserve the stream buffers and the topography that will be most visible to the neighbors, which makes up about a fourth of the site. So we're trying to be consistent with Serve Policy 5 regarding protecting and preserving open space and stream buffers on our existing conditions on a site regarding the environmental conditions. Finally, as Katie also mentioned, the site is relatively close to RTP, which supports growth policy number 1 regarding growing a sustainable workforce. So we think overall the site is an ideal place for this type of, this size of a residential development that has a supportive amount of open space, and the future residents will benefit from the nearby schools and the future park nearby, and the density fits well with other densities nearby, and we would ask that the board support and offer a vote of support for approval. And I also wanted to point out in regard to community engagement, the MI Homes team met with the president of the HOA, I believe it was the Thursday before the long MLK weekend, just to hear their concerns and have a discussion about what their concerns are. And from what I heard, it was a very positive meeting. So MI Homes is doing a good job of being a good neighbor and will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mutisia. I'll now open it up to board questions.
I have one question. Probably be, the Seahorse Court, the way I look at this, it does not come into your development. Is that true? Is there going to be some sort of a buffer there, or how's that going to work?
It does not come into the development, and we are not planning to connect to the development to the south.
Is that short-term, long-term?
And I'll just jump in really quickly to say the official determination of connectivity would happen at the time of development plan review, and there are a number of factors that would come into play as to whether or not Seahorse Court would actually connect. Like, for example, our staff would look at, are there stream buffers in the area? We would look at whether the right-of-way stubs to the property line. So there's a variety of factors that would come into play. But again, that decision would have to come in once the development plan submitted with all the additional information that goes into that consideration.
And I would assume that would be very important to that neighborhood.
Yes,
just to say the least. So, because to me, that's kind of the big part of this. If they don't connect, it's too different, then that really does away with parking concerns and other things. But so really that's just something that we shouldn't take into consideration. Is that what we're saying for right now? It'll work itself out later.
Yeah, like I mentioned, the official determination would happen later in the process during development plan. In addition to the factors that I noted, the applicant has an opportunity to request to not connect, and they could put that official request through. But again, that would accompany the development plan.
Okay, all right.
I have a question for the applicant. The pedestrian connection east-west across the property, is that just saying that there would be likely a street or some sort of walkway across the property?
We haven't decided exactly what that would look like, but I can open that up for our civil engineer to address that question specifically about what we're considering. So I'll let, if
Sure,
you're allowed,
that'd be
Ross, to
great.
speak on that.
Yep, I think so, right?
Good evening, Ross Massey with Stewart. So the idea is this particular neighborhood has a number of stream features, and so in order to have a more connected neighborhood, we wanted to make a firmer commitment to kind of connect the neighbors to each other, but also connect the neighbors to the street side trail on the adjacent roadway. And so right now we've committed to make that street or that pedestrian connection. Typically, it could be done as a private greenway, or could be at the town's option, like a public greenway. And so we'll coordinate at the time of development plan exactly what the physical disposition of that is, but it will be basically a committed walkway.
Okay. Is that part of the pedestrian bridge that was on previous slides? I thought I saw mention of a pedestrian bridge. I was just curious if that's the same thing.
Were you referring to this slide by chance?
No, it had the bullet points. One of the earlier slides.
This one?
Yes.
Yes, one of the zoning conditions is to provide an east-west connection across the site. And let me pull up a slide that was just referenced. As the applicant's representative just noted, this site is impacted by stream buffers. You can see stream buffers shown on the slide here. And I believe the intent for that condition is to just make sure that there is pedestrian access from one side of the site to the other side.
Okay, got it.
And where that would be is to be determined.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question regarding on the north side along Fazell, there's going to be a 30-foot streetscape, which is, I understand, 10 feet more than the minimum LDO, the LDO requires. And there's a 30-foot buffer, which is 10 feet more in the west, which is adjacent to the middle school. I'm curious about what the buffer is to the south, particularly where it's with that line, where the property line is going to be abutting a couple of the house lots on Seahorse Court. What is that? Also 20 foot on that side? And
I believe that because of the location of the stream buffers, the buffers will actually be much more than the typical LDO requirements, just because of the natural layout of the site with the stream buffers that are adjacent to Seahorse Court. And I don't know if the applicant wants to add any additional information, but that's...
Okay.
So if I could add, so the area that you see, the small sliver that's on the south side of Fussell, but the north of our property line, is a portion of the school site that was bisected by the public right-of-way. And so that's really kind of like where their stormwater discharges. And so it's not what I would consider necessarily developable, but it is part of the school's plan. And so it technically kind of just means our property line is quite a ways away from the right-of-way at that location. And then, discussions with the school system is they did not want to part with that property because it was part of their approved site plan.
So if I heard you correctly, you were talking about the northeast corner?
Correct.
Okay, I'm thinking about the opposite corner in the southwest.
Okay, apologies.
No, that's okay. I'm just kind of curious. I see that there's a stream buffer, obviously to be determined, the details of it. And I'm just curious about the buffer for those homeowners that are right there in that little corner. Is that an area that could be potentially, is that developable? I know it's hard to.
So my opinion is that with the perimeter buffers being adopted in that location, it basically renders that portion of the site unusable.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Oh, I'd like to just jump in with a quick clarification. Because the site is in a mixed-use overlay district, there are no specified buffer standards along that southern property line, but as we were just noting, the stream buffers may add to an increased buffer in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I'll be entertaining a motion. Happen to be looking
Fine.
at you. If anyone else wants to,
We have a different-
I move that the board find case number 19 REZ 21 is consistent with the comprehensive plan and all other applicable plans for the reasons set forth in the staff report, presentation, and discussion by the Planning and Zoning Board.
Second.
Thank you, sir. I think, if you look at this awesome transition, I think, between the area out there with RTP this close, I'm sure these townhomes would probably be very popular. So I think, if you look at the transition and the work, that really meets the definition. My only concern, and I know it's not something we can work out here today, is that I can see both sides of this horse court. I could see some of the neighbors saying it'd be great to have another way out of the neighborhood. I could see others saying we don't want to be connected. So I got you that has to be worked out later. But other than that, I think it's a proper usage.
I would agree with that.
any other discussion? If not, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 9-0. Thank you, Mr. I. We'll now be moving to our last case of this evening, which is 19 REZ 24, the Carpenter Village PDD Amendment. Mr. Loveland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Board. In 2016, Council approved an amendment to the Carpenter Village Plan Development District to add the Farrell Farm property. As is the case with most PDDs, this one included some flexibility to the typical dimensional standards in exchange for quality design. One exception to this flexibility was the maximum building height, which the PDD did not previously address, and that is the subject of the rezoning in front of you tonight. And that would be for the parcels highlighted on this slide, which we'll get into. Subject property is located on the side of Morrisville Carpenter Road at the intersection with Village View Lane. The area in the requested amendment is shown here in yellow and is identical to the footprint of the PDD amendment in 2016. However, the changes proposed for this particular rezoning would only impact the area shown in the dashed blue line. The existing zoning is PDD major, as we discussed, and the southern portion of the site is located within a mixed-use overlay district. The request is to amend the PDD with a revised PDP, preliminary development plan. The mixed-use overlay district would remain. In 2016, the Planned Development District Amendment allowed detached and attached dwellings for the 5 parcels shown here, the Farrell Farm property. This was the property outlined in yellow in the previous slide. This proposed amendment to the Carpenter Village PDD would modify the previous approval, but would only impact the townhomes in the 3 PDD parcels, highlighted here, allowing a height of up to 42 feet. No other changes to the PDD are proposed. As discussed in the staff report, 15 individual building permits spanning 3 townhome buildings have been issued at this point. Those units are currently under construction. A number of those units would exceed the maximum permitted height permitted by the LDO, 35 feet. The applicant has therefore requested this amendment to allow these units and potentially future units within these 3 tracts to proceed and exceed the height limit and allow a height of up to 42 feet. This request in and of itself does not directly address the policy of the Cary Community Plan, since it does not propose any changes to the use, densities, or other facets of the proposed development. However, the townhomes approved by the previous PDD amendment would support certain live and shape policies as they contribute to the diversity of housing and provide appropriate uses and transitions in the area. The townhouses on the subject site, which are currently under construction, as I mentioned, are seen here on the right, which is on the north side of Morrisville Carpenter Road. Even at the requested height, the townhomes will be slightly below the height of the Franklin Park mixed-use buildings that you see on the left, on the south side of the road. The Savon townhomes also sit slightly below the peak of the roadway due to the topography of the site and are set back. There's a 30-foot streetscape along Morrisville Carpenter Road as well. 2 citizens attended the December neighborhood meeting. In general, the additional requested height was not a concern, although traffic impacts of the development in general were noted, and staff has received 2 emails from citizens asking for information about this case. Excuse me, I lost my place. Council held a public hearing on January 9th. One member of the Carpenter Village HOA spoke and commented that he felt the requested height was too tall. Council members asked how the height compared to the mixed-use buildings and townhomes across the street in Franklin Park. We just saw that picture. Staff has confirmed that the building permits issued for those structures gave a height of 44 feet for the mixed-use building and 37 feet 2 inches for the townhouses. There have been no change in this zoning request since the council public hearing. Staff finds this request to be consistent with the Emerging Cary Community Plan. The request only impacts the height of the townhomes in the few select sections of the Carpenter Village Plan Development District. At most, this would be a 7-foot increase above the default height requirement of the LDO. For a maximum of 42 feet. The mixed-use buildings across the street are constructed at a height of 44 feet, so the visual impact of this height increase should be minimal. The permitted uses and densities and other dimensional requirements of the Carpenter PDD district, again, would remain unchanged. So this rezoning request is really about amending the height limit, to 42 feet for the sections you see highlighted here. And that concludes staff's presentation. Will be available to answer any questions after the applicant has spoke.
Thank you, Mr. Loveland. I'll now welcome the applicant to come forward and speak.
Good evening again, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Jason Barron with Morningstar Law Group here on behalf of the applicant. Somewhat unusual case, and candidly, an oversight in the previous zoning process, an oversight that was discovered during construction of units that you saw pictured, and I can't remember where that picture is, but I'm going to bring it up.
Slide 64.
64.
Let's try it again.
There we go. 83. Yeah, so something that was not caught during the rezoning process by the applicant team the first time around, but was always the intent to build townhomes of this style. And when I say that was always the intent, this is being modeled after a community that Ashton Woods has built over in the North Hills area of Raleigh that has similar style, similar building heights. And so when this issue came up at the time of permitting, it caught a lot of people by surprise, my client, myself included, and so we immediately realized it was something that wasn't expressly addressed in the previously approved PDD with PDP, because it's an unusual beast. If you all were on the Planning and Zoning Board when it came through, you remember. But I think this picture kind of demonstrates the manner in which even had we realized at the time and requested the correct height, it would have been a height that fits in with what is going on in that area. And the benefit of having, coming back after the fact is that you can kind of clearly see exactly what's going on across the street, how 42 feet on our side of the street makes sense. And what you don't see from this picture, at least not clearly, is that the topography of the site drops toward the stream. There's a stream that kind of lines or bisects this property, and you can kind of see, if you see the way that these townhome garages kind of drop down as you head towards the front of the picture. The grade drops as you move east and north on the site. And so the effect of that is even though we do have a pinch point, what I'll call a pinch point, is a high point of the development in here where you have close to a true 42 feet max. the vast majority of the other units that will be built along the public street as well as in the development will feel like less than 42 feet, just given the manner in which the topography works. But ultimately, we're here trying to fix a problem that was created when we failed to realize that we didn't expressly call for 42 feet height in this area. So with that, happy to answer any questions you all may have and respectfully request you all's support for the case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. I'll now open it up to board questions. I think this one's pretty cut and dry, but figured I'd ask. If not, we'll be looking to entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. Can I?
Yes, please.
Thank you. You already have the hat trick. I move that the board find case number 19 REZ 24 is consistent with the comprehensive plan and all other applicable plans for the reasons set forth in the staff report, presentation, and discussion by the Planning and Zoning Board.
I'll second.
I remember this case oh so well. It was an exciting night. It was a public hearing. One of the great ones.
Those were the days.
Yeah, but I think it makes all the sense in the world. I think, it's almost, I think about it, it's like, because of the architectural detail, wanting to have a gable roof so it matches the rest of it is where the penalty comes in for the 7 feet. If you'd done a flat top roof, would have been fine, and it would have been ugly as all sin. So, it's a technical correction. And let's see, moving
Any other
forward.
discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That one carries 9-0 as well.
Thank you all.
That concludes our cases for this evening. We do have one piece of new business to discuss tonight, and that is the adoption of our 2020 work plan. As I'm sure all members are aware, our board is required to have a work plan. In that work plan, it dictates what we're going to do and some of the highlights that we hope to accomplish. I did send that out, so hopefully everyone that was interested had an opportunity to take a look at that. If anyone has any comments or would like to make any changes, please say so now. If not, we do need to approve that, so I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve with the amendments and changes from last year's work plan.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That one carries 9-0 as well. That concludes us out for this evening. If we could take a motion for adjournment.
I'll move the I'll second.
Ooh. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.
This has been a production of Cary TV. Visit the Town of Cary's website at townofcary.org.